You've always been told that awakening would be the end of the journey, that by seeing through the illusion, liberation would be inevitable. For us, what if this apparent freedom is precisely the last trick? What if, the moment you believe you've broken the chains of the illusory world, it tightens its grip even further? For ages, mystics have warned that the false creator, the Demiurge, reigns not only through darkness, but also through perfect imitation. He captures not only those who walk blindly. Above all, he captures those who swear they see, those who consider themselves awakened. His most subtle trap is not ignorance, it is forged enlightenment. Because before any true awakening there is a test, a final veil so luminous, so persuasive, that almost every seeker accepts it as real. It is the ultimate prison, the illusion of light. You've experienced this before. The feeling of being on the verge of something grand, as if the ultimate revelation were just a step away. And yet, the further you advance, the more the path seems to fold back on itself, while the sneaky ego tries to don the guise of enlightenment, turning awakening itself into a disguise. The Gnostics warned that the Demiurge shaped the world like a labyrinth of mirrors, reflections within reflections, where even revelation can become just another layer of illusion. In this video, we will explore what the Gnostics called the last illusion before awakening, the luminous deception that guards the threshold of true gnosis. You will discover how false light disguises itself as wisdom, how the ego becomes its silent accomplice, and why the soul's final battle is not fought in darkness, as we have always been led to believe, but in a blinding light. And when the illusion finally crumbles, you will see how the power of the Demiurge dissolves not through belief, but through perception, through the silent act of seeing through the light that disguises itself as divine. Most will never reach that stage, because by unraveling the final illusion, you not only escape the trap, you reclaim what has always been yours, your divine birthright, your forgotten power. Long before the term nostalgic even existed, ancient mystics of Egypt, Greece, and Mesopotamia spoke of a being they believed to be God. He was called by many names, Yelabath, Saklas, and Samuel. But in all versions, his story was the same, a blind creator, born of divine ignorance, who mistook his shadow for light. In the Apocryphon of John, one of the sacred Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in Egypt, the Demiurge falsely declares, "I am God and there is no other besides me." But a voice answers, a silent echo from the Pleroma, the realm of true light, reminding him, "You are mistaken." This single correction defines the entire human condition, because when ignorance proclaims itself truth, illusion becomes reality, and inversion becomes the norm. The Gnostics saw existence as a fracture of the divine spark of consciousness imprisoned in a false cosmos, constructed by an arrogant craftsman who copied the higher worlds without understanding their essence. For them, this material realm was not evil in a moral sense, but rather a counterfeit, a simulation of divinity that keeps souls asleep through imitation. Every form of light here, they warned, casts a shadow. Even wisdom, if reflected imperfectly, becomes deception. But here lies the deeper truth that most ignore. The Demiurge does not rule by force. He rules by agreement, by belief in the architecture of his vast web of perception. He convinces the soul to believe that the copy is the original, that imitation is creation, that its reflection is reality, that its outer world is separate, and that you are the effect, not the cause. And in this acceptance, the trap closes. In later centuries, religious authorities called this heresy, the idea that the world itself could be an illusion. And yet even Jesus hinted at this truth when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Even so, fragments survived in alchemical texts, hermetic treatises, and even in the whispers of mystics like Meister and Jacob Bulmer. Each of them hinted that true awakening requires seeing beyond the darkness, but also beyond the blinding light. Because as they said, the devil's greatest trick is to convince the world that he doesn't exist, and the second is to convince the awakened that they are already free. The final trap the Gnostics warned against is not merely material. It is metaphysical. It is the mind's last clinging to false light, the ego's hunger to claim enlightenment instead of dissolving into it. In their cosmology, even the heavens were layered veils, arcane realms of beauty and brilliance designed to delay the soul's return to the source, each level more radiant than the last, each one whispering, You made it. But those who truly awaken are reborn. True light cannot be seen, only remembered. And when the memory arises, the illusion doesn't simply end. You realize that you were the one who wove it all along. The Demiurge doesn't create darkness to keep you trapped. He creates an imitative light, because no one willingly kneels before the shadow, but everyone venerates what appears to be the truth. Every illusion he constructs is made of reflections. Reflections of love, of wisdom, of peace, but never of the true essence itself. Think of a mirror. It shows form, movement, brightness, but contains nothing. That's how this false world works, radiant yet empty. And the more it shines, the more it distracts us from reality. But its true trick, the ultimate illusion, is more subtle than any paradise or creed. It is the illusion of awakening itself, the feeling of having arrived there, of now being above those who are still lost in the dream. This is how the false light feeds the ego. It transforms enlightenment into hierarchy and superiority, into a substitute for truth, the ego dressed in the robes of the divine. The Gnostics describe this trap as the false spirit, an inner force that imitates the divine spark but feeds on pride, superiority, and attachment to identity. It whispers, "You are special," and believing this whisper becomes the ego's ultimate disguise. But the true divine spark does not claim distinction. It dissolves it. This is how the Demiurge hides in the psyche, not as a tyrant, but as importance itself, as the subtle need to be right, to be seen, to be chosen. You can meditate for years, fast, chant mantras, or quote scripture. Yet if you still cling to the image of being enlightened, you are orbiting the same illusion. The trap doesn't only present itself as ignorance, it can also manifest as a spiritual escape, where the ego clings to love and light, avoiding the shadow. But here lies the deepest paradox. One cannot escape illusion by fighting against it, for resistance feeds it. Illusion itself thrives on polarity, good versus evil, light versus darkness, even the awakened and the asleep. Every opposition generates energy. Every conviction strengthens the network. The moment you define yourself against the illusion, you remain part of it. So the Gnostics did something radical. They stopped resisting and completely left the illusion, observing each glimmer of false light until its spell broke. They called this gnosis, not belief, not knowledge, but direct vision, seeing without the filter of the egoic mind's judgment. And when one sees clearly, the false light loses its power, because the Demiurge cannot imitate what has no image. He can only reflect, not emanate. He can only echo, not be. That is why awakening often seems like a loss, because what is dying is everything connected to the false light. The masks, the comfort, the glittering illusions. The paradox is that the final trap is not dark at all. It is beautiful. And it is this beauty that deceives so many souls. But beneath this beauty lies something constant, a stillness that cannot be copied. The Gnostic said, "True light has no opposite shadow or reflection. It is not seen, it sees." And when that consciousness awakens within you, even the illusion of awakening dissolves. You begin to realize that awakening was never something to be achieved. It was what you were always observing. Music. Every seeker reaches a point where the light begins to deceive them. It's not that light transforms into darkness. It's that illusion begins to mimic transcendence. And it is here that the Demiurge's design reveals itself most perfectly. The closer you get to freedom, the more subtle the chains become. The Gnostics understood this and called it a false paradise, a place of ecstasy, splendor, and revelation that still exists within the limits of illusion. They warned, beware of the joy that flatters the ego, for the false light does not frighten you into subduing you. It comforts you, leading to complacency, gently enveloping you within the padded walls of your prison. Think of all the ways this manifests itself. The feeling of superiority over those who are still asleep, the obsession with being seen as spiritual, the relentless pursuit of external validation as proof of enlightenment. Each of these elements is bait in the same trap, a glittering cage made of meaning. The Demiurge feeds on fixation. It doesn't care if you seek wealth or enlightenment. As long as you keep searching instead of seeing, looking outward instead of inward, he knows that the seeker who never stops searching will never truly reach their destination, for arrival requires silence and presence. The ultimate trap is this incessant movement, this subtle addiction to the next understanding, the next ascension, the next transmission of divine truth. And each next step that keeps you here, spinning within the luminous labyrinth. It is no longer ignorance. It's an intoxication. The Gnostic said that the Demiurge builds his throne within, the mind that seeks control. That's where the false light takes hold. When the ego wants to possess the divine, to comprehend the infinite, to retain it as a concept. But true awakening cannot be possessed. It can only be experienced. You cannot capture truth in language, just as you cannot capture wind in a jar. And yet, the Demiurge tempts you through philosophies, doctrines, scriptures, and even sacred texts. Because once you believe that enlightenment is something to be achieved, you are already enlightened. That is why the greatest masters spoke of paradoxes. Jesus, in the Gospel of Thomas, says, if you bring to light what is within you, what you bring to light will save you. If you don't manifest what's inside you, that which you don't manifest will destroy you. He wasn't describing a moral judgment. He was revealing the architecture of illusion. The power that liberates you is the same power that imprisons you when misused. That is the genius of the Demiurge's ultimate design. He doesn't hide the truth. He doubles it and inverts it. He gives you half of paradise, enough to keep you searching, enough to make you believe you've found it. And as soon as you reach the threshold of silence, he offers you another revelation, another cosmic secret, another role to play. But Gnosis isn't about playing roles. It's about seeing through each one of them, even the sacred ones. On the threshold of awakening, the final illusion often presents itself as a light so radiant that it blinds. You think it's God. You think it's peace. But the true light doesn't dazzle. It disappears. It removes everything that can be seen until only consciousness remains. It is at this moment that the Demiurge loses control. Not because you fought against it, but because there is nothing left in you for it to reflect. No belief to distort, no identity to maintain, no illusion to imitate. The final illusion crumbles not through conquest, but through clarity. When the silent inner witness awakens, deception has nowhere to hide. The mirrors shatter, and all that remains is the one who sees their true self. So how can one escape what was never real? How can one go beyond the ultimate illusion when even taking a step implies distance? And distance itself is part of the dream. The Gnostics said that freedom begins not with rebellion, but with remembrance. You don't fight against illusion. You remember what came before. You remember the silence underlying every thought, the still consciousness that observes your fears, your hopes, your beliefs, and remains untouched. You don't need to destroy the Demiurge's world. You just need to stop feeding it with its only source of life, your attention. So begin to observe what demands your attention. Whenever a fear, a desire, or a spiritual idea demands your energy, pause, observe, feel its strength, and then gently remember, this too is light pretending to be true. You don't need to reject it. Just see clearly. This act in itself, seeing without absorbing, is the beginning of liberation, of gnosis. It's like turning a mirror towards the sun. The reflection dissipates, leaving only the light. When false light offers you comfort, ask yourself, does this expand me or strengthen me? True light expands. It erases the barriers of I and mine. False light strengthens the story. My path, my progress, my awakening. In moments of doubt or confusion, try this. Close your eyes. Forget all teachings, all labels, all images of who you think you are. Don't visualize, don't seek. Simply rest in the pure consciousness that sees everything come and go. This consciousness is the true light, the one that the Demiurge cannot imitate. The final illusion dissolves not through effort, but through exhaustion. When the seeker tires of seeking and simply sees, then the illusion crumbles on its own, like a wave that forgets it was once separate from the ocean. You may find that awakening feels less like the conquest of something and more like the loss of everything that was never real. It can be disorienting. A feeling of falling through the last layers of identity, belief and spiritual certainty. But this fall is grace in disguise, because only the empty vessel can be filled with light. Remember that the Demiurge thrives on movement. Remain still and it disappears. It cannot retain what no longer moves toward or against it. Therefore, your practice is not to pursue the light, but rather to remain still enough to remember it. When fear arises, observe it. When beauty tempts you, observe it. When peace arrives, observe that too. Keep observing until everything becomes transparent, including the observer. That's where gnosis begins. Not in ascension, not in conquest, but in a silent perception. There was never a trap, only a dream of forgetfulness. This is the moment you begin to awaken. And if you've made it this far, it means something within you is already remembering. If you want to delve deeper into these teachings, I've created a free ebook for you, Escaping Illusion, an agnostic guide to mastering reality. Within this book, you will find practical tips and forgotten methods created to help you sharpen your perception, dispel illusion, and transcend the illusions of this world. You can download your copy for free. The link is in the description. Music. The Gnostics knew that the path to awakening was not an escape from illusion, but rather a passage through it. Through every shadow, every false light, every reflection of God that was not God. And they taught that when the last veil falls, it doesn't reveal a distant heaven. It reveals you, the one who has always been dreaming. The Demiurge's final trap was never intended to destroy you. It was meant to test your vision, to see if you could recognize the truth, even when it wore the mask of light. To see if you could love reality not for its beauty, but for its clarity. Because once you see through imitation, even illusion serves the divine. You don't conquer the Demiurge by rejecting the world. You transcend it by seeing the world as it truly is, transient, shimmering, a game of mirrors that cannot touch what is real. And what is real has no opposite. It cannot be taken, imprisoned, or copied. This is the secret that the ancient Gnostics guarded, and the one you are always destined to remember. True light has no form, no reflection. It needs not prove anything to itself. It simply is. Therefore, as you walk through this world of reflections, let consciousness be your guide. When the false light beckons, see it. When truth dispels the last illusion, let it flow and remember. Each time you choose clarity over comfort, presence over distraction, the Demiurge loses a little more ground. For in those silent moments of perception, the illusion begins to unravel from within. The false heavens fade, and what remains is simplicity, the silent knowledge that cannot be taken, exchanged, or taught. Each act of awareness is a crack in the great mirror through which the true light begins to pour forth. If this message has reached you, it is because you were destined to hear it. You are not at the beginning of awakening. You are on the threshold of it. Take a deep breath. Look around. The mirrors are shattering, and what remains is what has always been free. If these words touched something deep within you, share what you remembered in the comments. What illusion have you begun to unravel lately? And if this exploration helped you glimpse the truth behind the false light, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Each week we help you remember what was hidden, the fragments of light scattered by illusion. And together, we gather these fragments one by one until the pattern of truth begins to reappear. Because awakening is not a destination. It is a continuous act of remembering who you have always been. The deeper you remember, the more silent everything becomes. You begin to realize that nothing new is gained. Only what is false dissipates. And in this stillness, what remains is not the seeker, but the source itself observing through your eyes. That is your true essence.